Hello, everyone. I am Jonathan Little. I want to thank you for being here today for episode, what number is it? 216 of Weekly Poker Hand. I want to thank you for being here through all 216 episodes. Today we have another hand from the $10,000 buy-in Party Poker Caribbean Poker Party final table that I played recently. And we're playing five-handed. There's only one short stack with about 40 big blinds at this point. So we're playing pretty deep. I'm playing quite deep with Sam Greenwood. As you see, we both have about 80 big blinds each. So I raise at 150,000, 300,000 to 700,000 with pocket jacks under the gun five-handed. That's normally the hijack seat. And Sam picks up pocket nines directly behind me. And he can definitely go either way. If he thinks I'm playing a reasonably snug strategy from the early and middle positions, then calling becomes quite good because, nines is a strong hand, but if he re-raises and then I 4-bet, well, now pocket nine shrivels up quite a lot, and that's not really what you want. So I like his call because it keeps me in with my whole range, which is going to lead to him faring much better. So I like his call. And then everyone else is going to fold. The big blind had 8-5 offsuit here. This is a situation where a lot of people think, okay, it's 400,000 more into a 2 million pot. I can probably realize my equity with this 8-5 offsuit. But Papazian in the big blind realized 8-5 is terrible, especially against an under the gun, well, a hijack raising range and then a cutoff calling range. So I like his fold a lot. Then we're going to see a flop. So pot's 2 million. It comes queen, queen, 7, 2 clubs. I have pocket jacks with no club. This is definitely a spot where I want to bet pretty wide. I can get called by all sorts of stuff. As I bet smaller, that's going to allow Sam to call with an even wider range, which is quite nice. So I like a small bet. I do go for 800,000. Maybe I would go 700,000 today if I wanted to nitpick. So about 40% pot. And Sam Greenwood with pocket nines should definitely just call. If he raises, you have to ask, what am I going to continue with? Well, I'm probably only going to continue with my very best made hands, like pairs, which he loses to, and then also my draws, which have lots of equity against him. So that's definitely not a good strategy. So he should certainly call. Sure, I'm going to outdraw him from time to time, especially when I have big cards or a flush draw, but that's okay. At this point, Sam has a very clear marginal made hand that does not want to play for all the money. So an easy way to not play for all the money is to not raise. Turns a 2 of hearts, and I could go either way here between betting or checking. If I bet, I am definitely going to get called by all the worst pairs, maybe even some ace highs and some draws. But betting opens me up to getting raised, and that would be quite bad because jacks is pretty good here, but kind of like Sam, I don't want to play for all the money. So I like to check, and then Sam can either bet small on the turn or check behind. I think either play is fine, but I like a small bet because now he's really only losing to aces, kings, jacks, and tens, and that's a relatively small range. So I think you should go for a small bet. If you bet small, I can very easily call with ace, king still. I can very easily call with pocket sixes. So I like a small bet from him into the 3.6 million pot. I would probably go, 1.4 million. If you start going very big, though, that's going to result in me calling primarily when you're beat. Like imagine he was to bet 3 million here, when I'm only going to call when I have a very good hand. So he goes a little bit smaller than I do. He goes 1.2, which is fine and reasonable. And I'm just going to call for sure. Sam likely thinks he has the best hand at the moment, most of the time. He probably thinks he has a decent range advantage at this point. So he's probably going to go for a small turn bet and a small river bet, unless the river is an ace, a king, a jack, or a 10. And it turns out this time it's an ace. So instead of getting multiple streets of value for my hand, now I'm only going to get that tiny bet. So on the river, I'm just going to check again. This is a horrible card for me. If he bets the river, it's very close, depending on the sizing he goes. But this time it just goes check, check. I know this may not seem like a gigantic, relevant pot, but these types of small hands, these like nuts and bolts hands, little tiny pot hands, often result in you chipping up a little bit or chipping down a little bit. And if you constantly misplay these scenarios, as you will see a lot of amateur players do, it makes it really hard for you to win at poker. Like a lot of players in Sam's shoes would just re-raise pre-flop. Imagine he re-raises pre-flop, I call, comes queen, queen, 7. I check, he bets, he calls, turns to 2. I check, he bets again, I call. River's an ace, it goes check, check. Now I would have won way more chips. Instead, Sam did not butcher it. He lost a little bit, but it was just a flesh wound. Now, the next question is, could I have done anything differently? And the answer is really no. I mean, it looks like my hand is, it was clearly good that time. But if I tried to play a much bigger pot by betting again on the turn, I maybe could have won a few more chips. But the ace was bad for me on the river too, so I'm just going to check and then check it down. So I think we both played that hand quite well, and neither of us ended up going broke with our marginal hands, which is certainly the goal. So that's going to be it for this episode of Weekly Poker Hand. I want to thank you again for being here today. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know on Twitter at Jonathan Little or in the YouTube comments. I see all comments that come into me. I want to help you all personally to make you the best poker player you can be. So feel free to interact. I'm always there to help. Good luck in your games, and I'll talk to you next week.